President Trump says the U.S. has reached a trade deal with South Korea. He also discussed fentanyl tariff reductions for China, the stability of the Gaza ceasefire, and a third presidential term. The Senate fails to pass a short-term funding bill for the 13th time. The government shutdown is now in day 29, and food assistance is drying up. We have the latest. Hurricane Melissa made landfall in Cuba this morning after devastating Jamaica as the strongest hurricane on record to hit the island. It's now a Category 2 storm. We have the update there too. Nvidia made history today as the first company to reach $5 trillion in market value. What CEO Jensen Huang had to say about the company's future plans.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Wednesday, October 29th. I'm Stephanie Cox. President Trump in South Korea today providing an update on trade negotiations with the key American ally, saying a trade deal has been reached.
I'd like to thank everybody. I know you all either reasonably well or very well. And we had a tremendous meeting today with South Korea. I think the meeting was determined, very much determined, and we made our deal. We pretty much finalized a trade deal, and we discussed some other things having to do with national security, etc. And I think we came to a conclusion on a lot of very important items.
우선 2천억 불은
The $200 billion package is structured similarly to Japan's $550 billion financial package agreed upon with the U.S.
투자 상한을
Trump President Lee Jae-myung agreed that Seoul can split up its promised $350 billion investment fund. $200 billion in cash would be paid in yearly installments capped at $20 billion. The other $150 billion is to be spent on investments in shipbuilding, which South Korea has promised to help Trump restore. Mutual tariffs will stay at 15%, while tariffs on South Korean cars and auto parts will also be reduced to 15%. Korean companies will take the lead in the shipbuilding initiatives. Meanwhile, aboard Air Force One today, Trump hinted at lowering fentanyl tariffs on Chinese imports.
I expect to be lowering that because I believe that they're going to help us with the fentanyl situation. They're going to be doing what they can do.
And on the rare earth terms, sir, do you need to see more than just a one-year delay? Is that sufficient to make other concessions?
I don't know. We haven't talked about the timing yet, but we're going to work out something. We're doing very well with rare earth, as you know, and I think we're going to make a big step with fentanyl. The thing with fentanyl, the border is now so tight, it's much tougher for them. We've been doing very well with that. We haven't talked.
Trump suggested the U.S. could reduce those tariffs ahead of his meeting tomorrow with Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping in South Korea. Trump did not provide details on how China would help curb the flow of fentanyl precursors into the United States. He says he intends to address the matter with Xi during their meeting. The White House says Trump will meet Xi at 11 a.m. local time on Thursday. That's 10 p.m. Eastern tonight, and we'll be keeping you updated. The president also discussed the fact that he can't run for a third term. He said his poll numbers are the highest numbers he's ever had. He also said he ended 8 wars and the U.S. has the greatest economy in history, adding that energy prices are also down significantly. Here he is discussing the economy.
The only thing that's not down is the stock prices. And 401ks are through the roof. Everyone's 401ks hitting records. So we have the greatest economy we've ever had. I have my highest poll numbers that I've ever had. And, you know, based on what I read, I guess I'm not allowed to run. So we'll see what happens.
Johnson says you're trolling when you talk about a third term.
Well, I don't think he said that. I don't think he'd use that term, but it's a very interesting thing. I have the best numbers for any president in many years, any president. And I would say that if you read it, it's pretty clear. I'm not allowed to run. It's too bad.
House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday said there's no way to amend the Constitution to allow Trump to run for a third term. That's because it requires a lengthy ratification process. Johnson said there were no plans to amend the 22nd Amendment before 2028. The amendment followed Franklin D. Roosevelt's four-term presidency. The amendment process needs approval by 2/3 of both the House and Senate, and then ratification by 3/4 of the states, or 38 states. Johnson remarked that he sees no path for that. Meanwhile, Trump was asked aboard Air Force One whether the Gaza ceasefire will hold.
Nothing's going to jeopardize. You have to understand, Hamas is a very small part of peace in the Middle East, and they have to behave. They're on the rough side, but they said they would be good, and if they're good, they're going to be happy, and if they're not good, they're going to be terminated. Their lives will be terminated, and they understand that. No, that's a very strong peace. Hamas is a small thing, but they kill people. They grew up killing people, and I guess they don't stop. But nobody knows what happened to the Israeli soldier, but they say it was sniper fire, and it was retribution for that, and I think they have a right to do that.
Trump's comments come after Israel conducted strikes on targets in Gaza last night. According to the Hamas-run Health Authority, the attack killed over 100 people. That number has not been independently verified. Israel says it attacked after an attack by Hamas terrorists killed one soldier. Both Israel and Hamas trade blame for violations of the ceasefire. The Israeli military announced it will continue to hold the truce agreement, but respond firmly to any violation. And Israel released a video appearing to show that Hamas staged the discovery of bodies of deceased hostages. According to Israel, Hamas planted the remains of an Israeli hostage at an excavation site before calling in a Red Cross team and pretending it had found a missing hostage. NTD's Daniel Monahan has highlights from President Trump's trip in South Korea and his meeting with President Lee Jae-myung and other key regional leaders. We'll turn to that next.
The Star-Spangled Banner played for Trump as he stands in salute. Trump was awarded South Korea's highest honor, the Grand Order of Mugunghwa.
I'd like to wear it right now. Thank you so much.
And President Lee Jae-myung gifted Trump a Korean treasure, a Chunmachung gold crown.
The Chunmachung gold crown symbolizes the divine connection between the authority of the heavens and sovereignty on earth.
Trump joined a meeting with President Lee.
There's a great love between our communities, between our people, between leadership, and we're all friends. I know you showed me a picture from a long time ago of you and I, and you're looking better now than you did then. That was quite a while ago, so you're doing something well.
President Trump said he knows the Korean peninsula remains technically at war and vowed his administration will work to straighten things out.
I know Kim Jong-un very well. We get along very well. We really weren't able to work out timing. We have President Xi is coming tomorrow, and that was something that obviously is very important to the world. But we'll have other visits, and we'll work very hard with Kim Jong-un and with everybody on getting things straightened out.
At the APEC CEO Summit, Trump said America's success fuels prosperity across the Pacific.
When America thrives, our partners thrive, and our alliances thrive.
The president says his administration has rejected the old model of incompetent government that punished success and rewarded failure.
We're rewarding those who build and create and hire and invest in the USA, and we're making America the best place on earth to do business.
On social media, the president addressed speculation about a meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, saying, quote, "For those asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada." Trump's arrival in South Korea came about 90 minutes late, following North Korea's announcement that it had test-fired a new cruise missile earlier in the day. The president downplayed the launch, calling it just one more missile from Kim Jong-un, and emphasized his good relationship with the North Korean leader. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thanks to Daniel for that report. War Secretary Pete Hegseth is in Japan today. He described the relationship between the United States and Tokyo as critical in keeping both countries safe and responding to threats from Communist China.
To strengthen the alliance, we need to continue building strong, lethal, combat-credible forces that are ready to deter war and, if necessary, fight and fight to win. China's unprecedented military buildup and its aggressive military actions speak for themselves. That's why President Trump's peace through strength agenda is so important. We don't have to stand here and tell Japan what it needs to do, because we both look out at the world and see the threat of a Chinese military buildup, and we see the threat to free people. And we have to defend our own countries and stand alongside each other. And so I think President Trump does an incredibly good job, better than anyone else on planet Earth, of bringing alongside other countries and saying, let's do this together.
Hegseth also called for an early implementation of Japan's plan to increase defense spending. Japan regards the security environment surrounding the country as the gravest since the end of World War II. That's partly because of China's military expansion and North Korea's missile and nuclear programs. Anti-CCP sentiment running high today in South Korea. Protesters gathered to oppose Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping's visit there for the APEC summit. The protesters held signs, wore costumes, and waved flags reading "Lies and Deception Out" to voice their resistance to the Chinese regime. Meanwhile, China today said it absolutely will not rule out using force over Taiwan. Beijing is striking a much tougher tone than a series of articles in state media this week that pledged benign rule if the island comes over to Beijing. Here's the organizer of the rally against the CCP.
South Korea seems to be working well now as a democratic country, but there are so many contradictions and a government that lacks legitimacy. It is never the will of the people that this government is acting pro-China. The people are still trying to promote friendship with Western world free countries. They want it. They don't want communism.
A protester said the current Korean government should be blamed for the high tariff imposed on the country, as it has not shown belief and trust in the United States. Traders and investors on both sides of the Pacific hope the sit-down will ease months of trade tensions. And next, Hurricane Melissa made landfall in Cuba early today as an extremely dangerous Category 3 hurricane. Right now, it's a Category 2 storm. This came after it devastated Jamaica in one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes in history. Speaking aboard Air Force One, President Trump confirmed that the U.S. is prepared to aid Jamaica.
Because I've never seen numbers like that. I saw it a little while ago, 195-mile-an-hour wind. I've never seen that before.
Is the United States going to?
Well, we have to. On a humanitarian basis, we have to. So we're watching it closely and we're prepared to move. But you know, it's doing tremendous damage. It's as we speak. It's right there right now.
Hurricane Melissa slammed into Cuba early this morning, making landfall with sustained winds of 125 miles per hour. Over 730,000 people were evacuated from their homes in eastern Cuba as the storm approached. Cuba's leader warned the storm would cause significant damage and urged residents to heed evacuation orders. Melissa made landfall in Jamaica as a Category 5 hurricane around 5 p.m. Eastern yesterday. Wind speeds reached up to 185 miles per hour. Here's more on that devastating storm.
The entire Jamaica has felt the brunt of Melissa.
Hurricane Melissa is being called the storm of the century after slamming into Jamaica with devastating effect Tuesday as one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes in history.
Jamaica has gone through what I can call one of its worst periods.
Melissa made landfall as a Category 5 storm with 185-mile-per-hour winds. The massive scale of the destruction quickly became clear, with extensive damage reported across southwestern Jamaica. Schools, homes, and hospitals all affected by the hurricane.
Some of those areas, like St. Elizabeth Parish, are the main food-producing regions of the country.
St. Elizabeth is the breadbasket of the country, and that has taken a beating.
Officials said hundreds of thousands of people on the island were left without power. After tearing across Jamaica, Hurricane Melissa barreled over the Caribbean toward Cuba.
Storm surge along the southeast Cuban coast 8 to 12 feet above normal tide levels. And again, dangerous major hurricane force winds expected across portions of southeastern Cuba.
More than 735,000 people have been evacuated in Cuba, where residents and officials spent days preparing for the hurricane's impact.
The Federal Reserve is expected to cut interest rates for the second time this year after a two-day policy meeting. The central bank will announce its decision this afternoon. The decision would bring the benchmark federal funds rate to a new target range of 3.75 to 4%. Earlier this month, Fed Chair Jerome Powell signaled more easing in response to a weakening labor market and the economic risks of waiting. Last week, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that annual inflation for consumer prices had inched up to 3% in September. The Fed's current inflation target is 2%. And Nvidia hit a $5 trillion market value today, becoming the first company to reach the milestone. Here's more on that story.
Nvidia edged toward a $5 trillion valuation on Tuesday, nearing a milestone yet to be claimed by any company. The heavyweight chipmaker reached that valuation after saying it secured $500 billion in AI processor bookings and announcing plans to build 7 supercomputers for the U.S. Department of Energy. Nvidia's share price closed almost 5% higher, adding over $230 billion in market value. The company's stock has surged 50% in 2025. Boss Jensen Huang said Nvidia plans to build what it calls a record-breaking supercomputer with 100,000 of its Blackwell chips. He also praised Trump's approach to energy.
The United States is ahead in the AI race, and we have to stay ahead in the AI race. President Trump, on first day, has been very pro-energy growth. If not for that pro-energy growth perspective and that initiative, we would be in big trouble.
Huang also detailed high-profile deals to investors, including a $1 billion investment for a 2.9% stake in Nokia, a logistics-focused partnership with Palantir, and a self-driving platform for Uber's robo-taxis. These deals come as Nvidia navigates the fierce U.S.-China tech rivalry. The company currently has no presence in China after U.S. export controls, but has stayed in President Trump's favor by resuming some domestic manufacturing. Wang said re-entering the Chinese market would be a major win for the firm.
Currently assuming China is going to be 0% of our business, and if it comes back, if President Trump was able to negotiate, or if China would like us to come back to China, it's going to be a huge bonus for us.
Nvidia is the world's most valuable company, well ahead of Microsoft at $4 trillion in value. Apple also briefly crossed the $4 trillion mark for the first time Tuesday, driven by strong iPhone demand and despite concerns over its slower AI progress.
The Senate has once again failed to advance a short-term funding bill extending the government shutdown into day 29. The GOP-backed bill passed the House in September with bipartisan support. In the Senate, Democrats have repeatedly rejected it while pushing for a deal on health care. Yesterday's vote was 54 to 45, 6 votes short of the 60 needed. Only 2 Democrats, Senators John Fetterman and Catherine Cortez Masto, crossed party lines to support the bill, along with independent Angus King. This comes after the largest union of federal workers urged Democrats to pass the GOP resolution. Senate leaders from both parties have remained entrenched, each blaming the other for prolonging the shutdown. This is now the second longest government shutdown in U.S. history, leaving about 700,000 federal workers furloughed without pay. Meanwhile, a coalition of Democrat-led states is suing the Trump administration to require the government to fund the federal food stamp program. NTD's David Lamb brings us more from a local food bank.
25 Democratic-led states and the District of Columbia are filing a lawsuit in response to the government shutdown's impact on SNAP benefits. But in an interview with Fox, the Secretary of Agriculture says the department does not have the $9.2 billion to keep SNAP benefits from running out.
New York saying that, or California, or any of these other blue states that have filed the lawsuit that say, oh no, we're going to go, you guys, USDA, go find the money, is it's their very friends, partners, colleagues, Democrat elected officials that continue to vote over and over again to keep the government closed.
40 million Americans are at risk of losing their food stamp or SNAP benefits due to the federal government shutdown. And food banks like the Lighthouse Food Rescue and Distribution here are seeing a surge in demand, and they're jammed, but they're still trying to deliver on their message.
Because we're in the residential, we have a strong relationship with the community. Actually, we're seeing a huge surge happening here in the community of the north side. A lot of people are attracted to the food, and now the need has actually grown a lot more.
The Lighthouse nonprofit says the surge began last week, and their lines have doubled or tripled in size. The Department of Agriculture says that federal aid will not go out on November 1st. This comes after the government said it will not tap into the $6 billion in contingency funds to keep benefits of the federal food stamp program going. This small nonprofit currently serves 1,500 people a day in a free farmers market approach. For some, the food banks are their lifeline. San Jose resident Henry Murillo was the first in line today, arriving 3 hours before the food bank opened.
I'm a veteran, so that's another thing I got going on too. So this helps a little bit with alleviating some of that stress.
I just have to ration better, budget better. I'm a disabled vet, so I get a little bit of benefits. Okay. A little compensation. Yeah. So yeah, just, I haven't eaten out, to be honest, in over a year.
A hearing is set for Thursday on whether to issue a temporary restraining order forcing the Department of Agriculture to fund SNAP benefits for November. In San Jose, California, David Lamb, NTD News.
Next, Do No Harm has released a new report exposing how prominent medical systems use electronic healthcare records to restrict parental access to children's medical records, enabling providers to hide transgender interventions from parents. Joining us now to discuss is Michelle Harvilla, an oncology certified nurse practitioner and director of programs for the group Do No Harm. Good to have you with us today. Michelle, break this down for us. What exactly is going on here?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. So what we found is that many of these health systems, under the guise of proxy access in the electronic health record, which is legitimate in many states based on state law to protect certain things that laws have enabled, such as sexually transmitted diseases and birth control access for adolescents. But what we have found is that many are using this as a veil to hide from parents what is happening in terms of so-called gender affirming care. So preferred pronouns, assigned sex at birth, without giving parents access to what is happening to their children.
So do you think parents should be concerned about this?
They absolutely should. As we know, in many health systems, beginning at the age of 13, parents will lose access to be able to see their children's health records. So this is very concerning in the sense that they don't know what is happening to their child when they're going in to see the doctor. They don't have access to the notes. They don't know necessarily what is happening when their child is seeing the doctor, because in many instances they are creating pathways where the child is being seen first without the parent actually being involved at that initiation of care.
So what has allowed this to happen?
It was under the guise of what was a push in what we call adolescent medicine, and with the idea being that to protect adolescents for certain things. So as I had mentioned earlier, testing for sexually transmitted diseases, access to birth control, under the guise that these adolescents should have autonomy or be able to make decisions for themselves to allow for development and to allow for growth. But what we also know is that within the adolescent medicine space, they've also push the concept of gender ideology. So again, using this proxy access, this autonomy to supposedly protect these adolescents, when in actuality, they're pushing this agenda on these children.
What's the solution in your view?
The solution really, in my view, is partly one policy, making sure that parents have complete access or have access to their children's health records when they go in to see the doctor. Anyone under the age of 18, they should be able to see what's happening with their child. And also really for parents to feel empowered to make sure that they know what's happening with their children. We feel strongly that both at a state and federal level to make sure that parents' concerns are being heard and that they're being able to protect their children as best as they should, as any parent would want to.
And what do you see at the moment among lawmakers in terms of the climate of responding to these kinds of concerns?
Well, it's really at a state-by-state level right now, and each state has its own jurisdiction and its own laws based on what they will and will not allow at the electronic health record and the proxy access. And really, as we emphasize in the report, is that we just want make the jurisdiction or whatever the law is that they're being followed. But in many instances, and what we found when we were looking examples throughout the country, is that many of these systems will completely remove access to these parents at the age of 12 and 13. So the first thing we want is to make sure that these institutions are following the state law. And then we need to have further discussions about what the parent can and cannot access at the electronic health record level.
What can parents and other concerned individuals do?
One, be aware of what's happening at your health system. Many parents were taken off guard, received a notice out of the blue that, oh, my child is turning 13 and I'm going to lose access. And in many instances, what happens is it's incredibly difficult to get that access back. It often requires the child to basically give the parents permission of to go back in and access their health records, when in many times the child is still on the parent's health insurance. So just to be really aware of what's happening, and speak out early, know in advance of what potentially happen at those health systems.
As a nurse practitioner who is concerned about this, I'm guessing this may put some health professionals in a tight spot as well. How would you explain what professionals can do if they are concerned as well?
Absolutely. So from a clinical perspective, it's really important that parents have access to what's happening to their children. Children do not have all of the capability or the capacity to be able to make very complex health decisions. And so we should be, as a clinician, we should be thinking about how can we take care of our patient the best? How can we keep our patients safe? And so really that's a partnership, not only with the child that you're taking care of, but also the parents as well, or the guardians as well.
Well, it's been very interesting to have you shed some light on this topic. Thank you so much for your time today, Michelle Harvilla.
Thank you very much.
I'm Stephania Cox, and this is World Watch. NATO and Romania say the U.S. plans to reduce the number of troops stationed on Europe's eastern flank. Romania's defense minister said the move comes as the U.S. focuses more on its own borders and the Indo-Pacific region.
We were informed at an official level, as a ministry, by our ambassador to NATO, the military attaché for defense. This reassessment of the posture is part of a broader strategy announced at the beginning of the year by the United States of America.
The reduction comes as President Trump pushes Washington's European allies to beef up their own defense. NATO said roughly 1,000 U.S. troops will continue to be stationed in Romania. Concerns over the alliance's eastern flank come amid Russia's continued war in Ukraine. Trump said in September that Washington could increase its troop presence in Poland. Dutch voters in today's general election will consider more than 1,000 candidates competing for 150 House seats. The country's electoral commission has registered no fewer than 27 parties. That means long ballots with the names of all the parties and candidates on each party's list. Voters will use small red pencils to mark them before folding them up and squeezing them into the ballot box. The large ballots are the result of the various parties in the Dutch House of Representatives. And the Department of Transportation has revoked approval for 13 Mexican airline routes into the United States. The department said Mexico has violated the two nations' bilateral aviation agreement since 2022. Since then, Mexico has denied routes for U.S. carriers and banned U.S. cargo operations from using Mexico City's Benito Juarez International Airport. U.S. airlines have been forced to land at an airport 26 miles out of the city. Secretary Duffy said the U.S. will hold Mexico accountable until it honors its commitments. British police have arrested a 22-year-old Afghan man for murder after he allegedly stabbed 3 people on a residential street in West London. 1 person was killed. Britain's Interior Ministry said that the man arrived in the UK illegally in 2020. He was granted asylum and allowed to stay 2 years later. Illegal immigration has become a major political issue in the UK. The governing Labour Party has vowed to crack down on gangs trafficking migrants into Britain. The opposition Conservatives have said they would move to deport illegal immigrants from the UK.